Well, hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 9 of Blue Lock, and it is a cold morning. We had snow last night, so the ground is like blanketed in white snow. It feels like December, and I'm super excited to get warmed up by this game. But we're at the halftime, so we're at the halftime. So I'm really curious to see, like, are we gonna get any like halftime talks? I can't imagine Ego going into great detail with his halftime talk. He'll just be like, just keep doing what you're doing. But I imagine after the fact that Blue Lock is leading 2-1, that the coaches and managers may have some things to say to the U20. I have a feeling that they're going to try to bench Sindo so they can bring Ryusei in for the second half. I just have ideas of what they probably will do, and Blue Lock is known to surprise us, so there's a very good possibility that we will be shocked by what they end up doing, but that's why we're watching, to see what happens. So I've got some comments I want to talk about. I want to talk about some other things as well. And I do want to talk about also the fact that Discord has told me that as of right now, I'm recording episode 9, they said that they've learned that episodes 13 and 14, the 2 final episodes, are going to air consecutively together and be like an hour-long special. Fine with me! So that will probably be my goal, is to have, to maybe, if it all works out, watch episodes 13 and 14 together to have as like a dual reaction for the channel. That should be a lot of fun. So I've done that with other series before when I've watched 2 episodes at once. So should be a good time. I can't imagine splitting it when you all don't have to split it. You all get to watch it together. So I feel like I should as well. And they clearly are possibly putting the episodes together for a reason. So it would seem kind of a waste to split it. So yeah, we'll just look forward to that at the end of the year. So that'll be a fun way to like round out 2024 and kick off 2025. So yay. But in any case, I do have some comments I want to talk about before we dive into this episode. Algumalgum says, Reens, keep your eyes on me to Isagi in this episode, which was episode 7 or 8, is almost word for word the same as the one Isagi gave to Nagi back during the 3rd selection rivalry matches, if I'm not mistaken. I might have to double check, but I think it was the match where Isagi's team won and picked Chigiri. I like the idea that Rin and Asagi are saying each other's catchphrases. I mean, are we surprised? It just furthers the ship even more. Am I right? Am I right? And then Anne had a couple things that they wanted to share. Anne said, I'm all into Fraud Toshi. Fraud Toshi Sae. I love that Fraud Toshi is his name now. And his agenda: failed 2 passes and a goal. Go Toshi Rin. Would never. Also, Isagi must really like that keep your eyes on me. He's been replaying that line like 3 times now. I mean, all good things happen in 3s, right? I love how Rin is acting like a captain. He leads by example and gives orders to switch plans. He really is carrying. We'll talk about that in a hot second. But Anne also says, finally, I'm going to end with this comment with the last Rin glaze. When Sae intercepted Karasu, although Sae made the play, Rin was the one getting the ball. For me, it's tied to the luck concept from the first season. Rin's excellent positioning makes him more likely to get the loose ball and chances created by others. I do like this idea that Rin is kind of lucky. I wonder if when we go into the backstory, because we know what's going to happen at some point in this series, we're going to have backstory between Rin and Sae. They've been building it up the entire time. I wonder if it's going to go into the idea that Rin is kind of lucky and has kind of been like maybe relying on that luck, and Sae's like, you need to work and it's not just luck or whatever. Maybe Sae's not lucky. I'm curious what we're going to get on that. But I also like the idea that Anne brings up that Rin, despite what he thinks of himself, he is a leader, and he does do leaderly things on the court and on the field. He just doesn't want, he's kind of tsundere. He doesn't want to admit it, but he is much more of a leader. Sae just stands off and goes, just give me the ball and let me score. But Rin, regardless of what he intends, does kind of bring people together, which is kind of really cool. I also want to point out that this was brought up in the Discord. It's this picture of, it said, also since Romania has now seen the additional time where Corona cheers up Rayo, I want to point out that Corona was there to see the Nagi and Rayo break up and probably even saw Rayo cry. Corona, we should give him our flowers, because Corona has been there since the beginning. Corona has seen the breakup. Corona has seen Rayo's frustration. And so as a wingman to Rayo, Corona is just so good. I was like, yes, please. Awesome. I love that. I love that we have a character that's seen all the tea being spilled. That's so much fun. Kaylin V had a long comment, but I want to get to it. I love the contrast of how the U20 and Blue Lock score their respective goals. On the U20 side, Sae did everything on his own. He had to pick up his own goal after it was blocked. It goes back to what he says about how Japan's team is too defensive and doesn't score goals. Meanwhile, for Blue Lock, when Rin's shot gets blocked, literally almost every team member charges in to keep up the momentum on the offense, bulldozing over the defense. It's the perfect example of Ego's philosophy of soccer playing out. Everyone's working as a team, but they're also competing to score that goal. They're not going to sit back and let someone else do it. Which is kind of hilarious to think about because that means Ego's strategy in its simplest form is throw as many boys at the defense until one of them breaks through and scores a goal, which is so inelegant and dumb, and I love it. No, that's pretty much it. And I think that what this match is showing is a really, really good, like Kaylin points out, tie back to season 1, where at the very beginning in the first episode, Isagi didn't feel confident in himself to score the goal, and he was told to pass it, and so he relied on someone else, and then it didn't work out, and he was kind of devastated about it not working out, and he's like, what if I'd taken the goal myself? It might have worked. We don't know. And we kind of see that emblematic here. I honestly love the idea of everyone working as a team, but also trying to score the goals themselves. I coach forensics, and it kind of ties back to that, where I tell the students on the team, I'm like, you all are competing together to do well for the team, but you all are responsible for your individual success. So you've got to go out there and get the success for yourself, and in turn, that will bring it all together for the team. So soccer's kind of not that different, oddly enough. So that's kind of cool, but I love that comment, Kaylin V. I think that was a really good way to put it. And then finally, Alexandra Q points out, look, I'm going to speak like a little sister now, but I actually agree with Sae so much about Rin not being able to surpass him as long as he sees Sae as his older brother. Agreed. There's this subconscious admiration, I think, that is very natural and makes you see everything your older sibling does as untouchable and unsurpassable simply by the fact that your older sibling did it, because they've always been ahead of you in life by the simple virtue of being born first. While at the same time, there's this need to be better, to surpass and achieve something incredible all on your own, but both things also and often clash subconsciously. Yeah, I feel like Rin wants to be his own person, and I kind of feel for him because so far in this series, everybody's been like, oh, you're Sae's younger brother. And I'm like, I knew somebody in high school that had an older sister, and she was like amazing at softball. And she was like class president, valedictorian. She was like the perfect child. And then her younger sister, everybody was like, oh, you're so-and-so's sister. And she's like, yep. And you could just see every time I would see her in public and we would talk, I would just see her be kind of dejected by the fact that everyone was comparing her to her sister. And I was like, ugh. It was really, I'm glad my brother and I are polar opposites in our interests, and we're far enough apart in age that nobody really compares us. So that's good. Plus, we both suck at athletics. So there was no comparison there. But anyway, I really think that that's so true. And even if Rin doesn't necessarily think that he admires his brother anymore, he's still trying to surpass him, but that label of brother is still there, which is something. So what can we do? But yeah, so I'm super excited to see how this goes down. I hope you all are as well. Real quick, I want to give a shout out over to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon to thank you so much for your support and kindness. Wim sent me, it'll be in my December update video, Wim sent me a little keychain that I can put on my Christmas tree. It's a plushie of Isagi as a shrimp. You can go watch that December update video and see me freak out about it there, but I'm so excited to have some Blue Lock merch, especially stuff that I can hang on my Christmas tree. It's great. But I want to give a shout out to Alex Cornejo, to Anime Annie, to Be Happy, to Bryant Reed, to Dana, to Danny Don Mai, to Damage3245, to Danger Zone, Devorin, Destiny Marie, as well as Eric, Ichu, Fisho, Ghostly Turnip, El Freya, Liam Poles, Lyndon, Matthew Palfinier, Murphew, Moroni W, Alexandra Q, Nicholas, Sunspots, Shimoyama, Trails, Translucent Men, Nancy Mass Art, as well as I alone am the bitchless one. Thank you so much for all of your support, as well as for all those on Patreon and YouTube supporting me. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. Yep. It's been 10 minutes. We need to go ahead and start. So I'm super excited. I hope you all are as well, but I poured myself some coffee. I'm ready this morning to get on with Blue Lock. It's a nice winter day outside. Let's warm up with some football. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Ooh. All right. I still can't watch the OP. I have to remind myself that. But I can see the ED. Are we getting it now in the halftime? Yes! Wow. What a little bitch! What a little brat! Or a psychopath, one of the two. Oh. Because Rin's lucky he gets the one. Because he is lucky. Yeah, we're going right to that. A sore loser, yeah. Oh, look how cute that is! Look how cute Rin is! Oh my god, baby Rin is adorable! He's so cute. Oh, he's so precious. He's so precious. Oh, that's the drop. And he... Oh. His luck. Oh. 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 Oh, I see where this is going. You could be the second strongest player after me. Is that kind? Oh, we'll talk about that. Is that kind? He said second strongest. Not strongest with me. Not stronger than me. Night Snow. Oh! Oh! Meanwhile, they're so innocent. I don't know what's happening. Oh my god, his parents are himbos. Oh! And Bachira's mom's right there. Oh my god. The in-laws are meeting. What? Oh, they're more than just best friends. Oh! She looks so much, Bachira looks so much like her. Oh, that's so cute. Where's Rin and Sae's parents? Are they there? Does she know we're in a threesome? I love that. What about Rin and Sae's parents? Are they there? I doubt Rayo's parents are there. Ooh. I mean, it's not his fault. Bitch, Baratsuda. I love that they did not expect ego. Oh my god. Oh my god. What? Oh, I love them just losing it. And Ego's gonna be like eating his ramen, having no problems. Oh, that tried and true archetype? You sure? Oh, yay! Did you see how glam I was? Ah! Oh my god, Toki! Yes! Aww. Good. Don't be foreshadowing with that. Oh! Of course! Oh. Why does Rayo always look just so disheveled and like he hasn't slept in 3 days? Uh-huh. There was a lot of gay, there was a lot of goals. I love Gein's little bun perking up through that. Oh. I want Rin to be his cute little self like when he was a kid. Uh-huh. So, you're not getting rid of him. Oh, a sacrifice. He's like, that's a bit kinky. But I like it. Do you? Exactly. No. Good. That's how you should feel. Uh-huh. Yes. Yep. Exactly. No, I have a feeling it's going to be a lot harder. Right. Don't get cocky. Yep, don't be satisfied. Good, 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 good. Exactly. Good on you, Ego. All right. Keep everybody in the wings. Oh. Okay. Yeah. Oh, Rin. I love these things in terms of Rin, too. All right. Ooh, this is such a different vibe. Meanwhile... Oh, sigh. I'm gonna go make out with my boyfriend, so shut up. What? 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 But the game's not over yet. But the game's not over yet, bitch. What? Oh. Wow, but is Ryusei gonna keep him there? Why are you walking out without a shirt on, bitch? The game's not over. What? Uh. Oh. Oh, I love it. Oh. And Sae's such a sore loser. I want Ryusei to keep him there. A devil, yeah. Oh! Oh, really? I mean, of course it was. Oh, that was the fastest turnaround in anime history. You knew that was gonna happen, you bitch! You dramatic bitch! I mean, what did Sae think they were not gonna play Ryusei? What a winch! I want Asagi to sit by Rin and be like, "Hey, buddy, how you doing? You doing okay, buddy?" From the kindest brother to a bad excuse of a brother. Look at this kid in the corner with the Band-Aid. Oh. But you can't box yourself in as being the second best. Oh. Wow. With my bro. But that's not what Sae wants. Oh. Oh. What do you think about the apocalypse? Oh. Ooh. Oh. Ah, there we go. Right. Uh. Oh. Tomorrow. Uh-huh. Oh, good. Is that when he's gonna get reality checked that he's not the greatest? Ooh, interesting. Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. Oh, and there's his parents. I can't believe Ren's looks so adorable. Oh, why does he look so cute? No, what? Stop! Make him look like that again. Oh. Confining and awkward. Oh. Ooh. Wow. Okay. Oh. Oh. Just sucked the life right out of him. Aw. That distance between them. And he's such a sore loser. Oh. Okay. Yeah. Oh. 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 Ooh. Oh. Oh. Oh my God. Holy shit. Holy shit. Oh my God. And just out of the blue, like on his terms. Wow. Oh. Oh. Oh my God. Oh. 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 Ooh. Ooh, that word replacement. Oh. 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 Oh my God, you're so extreme. Why are you so extreme? Bitch. Oh. No, I don't think that's it. No. No, your brother's just being such a bitch, but that's not what he means. No. Y'all need to communicate, bitch. No, there's so much going on here. Just gonna put the picture down. Oh, or he's gonna freak out. Oh, right. Yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh. These two are so messed up. They just need to talk. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Anti-Cheeto measures. I love the twitching hand. Well, to keep Sae there. To keep Sae there, obviously. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. The whole stuff with Rin and Sae is so layered. It's so layered. There's so much going on. There's so much going on, and I just want to shove them in a padded room and make them talk. Oh my God. Oh my God, they're both, oh, these bakas, these bakas. Oh my God. I just, can you believe this shit? Wow. Also, Sae being the most dramatic, like such a dramatic video. He's like, I'm leaving. And then they're like, well, Ryuse's here. I'm staying. What a bitch. That's enough to keep him there. Oh my God. Wow. I was like, do we get an additional time? Do we have time for that? Mm. Uh. 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 Useless! Useless, you dumb it! Oh my God. Uh. Ha! Ha! Uh. Hmm. Interesting. Ah! Do not kick soccer balls at cars. Let's run, Rin. Right. Don't kick soccer balls at cars. Oh. Oh. I want to trap baby Rin in a bottle and take him with me wherever I go. much to talk about. There's so much to talk about with Sae and Rin, and I'm so glad we're getting to this now. This is actually kind of a stroke of genius, because I was like, when are we going to have the flashback to Rin and Sae? And originally in my head, I was thinking, okay, well, probably around the climax of the match, we'll probably have that. Now, here's the important thing. What we get in this halftime flashback is Rin's perspective. We get Rin's perspective of how he views his brother and his actions. And there's a lot that we, the audience, I think can see and draw inference from that Rin cannot see himself. Because a lot of the stuff Rin says, I'm like, no, that's not what your brother means. Your brother, it does not mean that, but you think that he does. So I think it's really smart to have this first flashback to kind of get us up to speed. I think it's important to have it in the halftime portion because we're at the halfway point through the game. I personally think, and I could be wrong because Blue Lock has proven me wrong before, but I personally think that we will get Sae's perspective at the end of this match when I think Rin and them will beat them. Because I think they're going to beat the U20. I think the U20 is going to put up a hell of a fight in this second half. And now that Ryusei's there, it's going to be really, really hard. And I think that Oliver is going to like evolve as a character. And I don't know about Sendo. We'll see about what happens with Sendo if they take him out or keep him in. But I think that Oliver is going to change and develop as a character and kind of change his philosophy. I think the U20 are as well. My thing is, I think that Ego's whole point, when Ego put Blue Lock out as this thing, his original thing he told the players were, as far as I can remember, is that the top 5 were going to be incorporated into the roster of the U20. That's how I thought this was all going to go down. Like, this was all to establish that Blue Lock is credible and that the strikers coming out of Blue Lock are worthy to be part of the U20. The way that the U20 describe it, they're like, oh, if Blue Lock wins, we're all out of a job. They're going to replace all of us. And that's kind of not what I feel Ego had originally told the Blue Lock players, but I do agree that Ego would like to shift how soccer is done in the U20, and maybe in that regard, it would put a lot of them out of a job because they're not going to measure up to what Ego wants to do with Blue Lock. So maybe that's where it's coming from. And I'm sure management is probably like, yes, Ego's going to just take everything. They took our jibs from us so that it gets them motivated to win even more. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. But I feel like the second half is going to be a lot harder because Oliver's going to step up his game. I feel like they're all going to step up their game because they don't want to be beaten. And obviously, Sae and Ryusei, God, we'll talk about them. But I feel like I feel like U20 is going to lose. And Sae, I feel like my hope is that Rin is going to defeat Sae. And I think he will. And I think my prediction is in the final hours, we're going to see Sae's perspective. And we kind of get glimpses and hints at it in this episode, which I want to talk about. I've got Sae and Rin over here, like lined up to talk about them. But God, this episode was so good. This was so good. I didn't know what to expect out of the halftime show. I was like, it's just gonna be a halftime, maybe a little recap, catch-up episode. No, this was amazing. And it's snowing outside, and it's night snow. The timing could not be more perfect, right? So I do have some obligated blue Kool-Aid over here in the corner, but it's hot because cold Kool-Aid sounded not good on a cold day. I'm ready to drink some Kool-Aid. But I did pour like some more hot coffee after that reaction. I was like, no, I need to refresh. So let's talk about these brothers. I can't put into words correctly or to the emphasis that I want the well of my desire to see innocent, sweet baby Rin is so infinite that you cannot see the limit. He was so precious. He was so precious and innocent and sweet. And like if Sagi could see what he once was, he'd be like, oh my God. But it's just he's been so warped by his psychopathic yet caring brother that it's like, oh my God. I know that soft Rin is deep down inside, but he is fueled by this desire to beat his brother and prove him wrong that it's driven out, but to know that that soft Rin exists somewhere deep, deep down inside, buried by all of this angst and turmoil with his brotherly relationship, to know that it's there and that it's been there, I want to just cuddle little baby Rin and put him in my pocket and take him on a world tour. I can't describe how much I love it. It's just, words do not do it justice, and I'm sure you all agree. But Sae is an interesting character. I really like the route they take with him. They've made these two so layered, and I really love that. I wasn't expecting this to be such a nuanced, in-depth sibling relationship, because usually it's something very simple. And on the outskirts, this whole thing seemed very simple. It's like, oh, he just wants to be his brother. No, there's a lot of layers to this, and we need to break it down in terms of Sae's personality versus Rin's, their dynamic, the reasoning. There's so much in this episode that it starts out with. But the main thing is, Rin has always been really good at soccer. And the thing that's so interesting is that he's like, oh, he's always so cool. And we see like, he's had like the soccer tournament, Toshi Sae honors, champion of Toshi Sae, like all of these, he's super amazing. So Wim wanted to point out, there was a little bit of information that the episode doesn't quite say specifically that was left out of episode 9. So the anime left out that Sae was 8 when he was interviewed and 13 when he left for Spain, which is super young. And so when the night snow happened, he was 17 and Rin was 15. And at present, Sae is 18 and Rin is 16. These are hormonal teenage boys. Hormonal, not fully developed cognitively teenage boys that are the most dramatic. And I'm like, oh my God, it all makes sense. You are teenage, dramatic, hormonal boys. I'm not surprised. Also, going to Spain at age 13, we see like a little glimpse of his mom. She has like the brown hair that's kind of like the darker version of Sae's pink hair in the back as they're wishing him well. Or maybe it's not even Sae's parents. Maybe it was the redhead's parents that were next to him. We don't know. His parents aren't present, which is, I think, interesting. It's interesting that Sae has all of these awards and the parents are nowhere to be seen in the narrative, which is kind of unusual because like in Kuroko's Basketball, there's a character whose parents like fuel the fact that you have to be good at soccer, or at basketball, you have to be good at basketball, you have to do this. Or, well, no, let me backtrack on that. They're like, you have to, I don't want to spoil Kuroko's Basketball, but there's a character in there that's kind of like Reo's character a little bit, but they're obsessive like Sae towards basketball. And so they're kind of a mishmash of Sae and Reo in a weird way. It's hard to describe, but I was waiting for Rin's parents and Sae's parents to be like, oh, you have to play soccer and be good at it. That doesn't seem to be the case. I like that these boys are like absolute terrors and nightmares, and their parents are the most well-adjusted people in the world. Their parents are like, everything's just sunshine and daisies. Look at our sweet little boy. And Asagi's like devouring someone. Oh, what a sweet little lad. I'm like, what? So the parents have no clue how dramatic and crazy their kids are. What? So anyway, so we could say that Sae, the first time we see him, there's different parts here. We have Sae where he is the soccer, and I'm going to put prodigy into quotation marks because we're going to talk about that. And then we have 13 when he went to Spain. And then we have 4 years later at 17 for Night Snow. And then we have 18 at present, which we'll go back to all of these as we go. So the person interviewing him, it's so interesting. They're like, how does it feel to have the world watching you as a soccer prodigy? And Sae's reaction is, he's like, they're like, what kind of player do you want to be? And they're like, whatever, shut up, it's none of your business. Okay, first of all, Sae, for being an 8-year-old, if an 8-year-old told me that, I'd be like, you might need your mouth washed out with soap. I'm sorry. I'm raised a little bit more traditional. I'm millennial. I'm like, you don't talk that way to elders. You don't be disrespectful like that. Like, she's just asking you a question, doing her job that she's getting paid for. You little bitch. Like, be nice and respectful and courteous and go away. And you can think what you want off camera, but just be nice and answer the lady's question. Like, he's such a little bitch. And I'd be like, I would be in such trouble for my parents if I had spoken that way to an adult at age 8. I'm sorry. That is the 36-year-old coming at me being like, you need some manners and some discipline, little kid. But that's just Sae. He says whatever he wants and seems like, so let's establish his thing. He's a sore loser. He's a sore loser. And he's kind of aggressive and a brat. Yeah, he's very aggressive. And he plays nonchalant. He plays nonchalant, but he's actually a brat, which is emphasized in the halftime moment that I was like, you are a dramatic little theater kid that has been playing soccer. Now, I want to establish something from that conversation, though, where maybe he gets worked up, because I don't think that Sae is a prodigy. After this episode, I don't think he's a prodigy. I think Rin is a prodigy, but I don't think Sae is. I think that Sae, like so many other sports anime characters that we've seen, is someone that has worked extremely hard. Again, like Kuroko's basketball, it's kind of like the Himuro and Kagami relationship. Himuro works really hard to get where they're at, and Kagami is kind of a prodigy. And so it's like, but which is not to say that Rin and Kagami and Kuroko's basketball haven't worked hard. They have. Things just come relatively easy to them, and they kind of are talented without having to put in arguably as much work or dedication as someone like Sae. Like, it seems like when Sae says that soccer is everything to him and nothing else, I fully believe that. I believe that Sae has put every ounce of his being into this sport to achieve his goals and to work that hard. And I don't think that's the definition of a prodigy. I think a prodigy is kind of like Nagi, kind of like Rin, where they just have this natural ability or natural luck in Rin's case, and it just kind of works out for them. And we'll talk about that throughout this episode. But I think that Sae gets kind of frustrated even as a little kid, because he's like, I'm not a prodigy. I'm putting in work. I'm doing all this. Like, this is my life. Don't make fun of me. Don't mock me. He could have said it in a much more respectful tone for a little 8-year-old brat, but I get where he's coming from. He just has this idea that he has had to work. He has had to work for his position. And he feels very strongly about that. And he has a lot of insecurities around that, as we're going to explore. So the one thing that kind of saves Sae for me as a character is that he does care about Rin, right? He's a little psychopathic brat, sure, but he's still human. He is very much a caring brother in the sense that he wants to look out for Rin. Now, when Rin says my big bro's kind of funny, I'm like, oh, you mean kind of like a sociopath? Yeah, sure. Yeah, I agree with you there. Rin is, I think, has the potential of a prodigy, especially as a kid. He has the potential of a prodigy. He has luck on his side. Like we talked about in the comments, he has a lot of luck. Things just work out for him. Like when he keeps getting the lucky stick, Sae's like, you should channel that luck into something useful. And then he does. He channels it into soccer. So he has luck on his side, but he's also very compassionate and emotional. And he loves his brother. And then that's why he gets so frustrated with him and mad at him. He's like, I love you. Why are you being a bitch? I think in Sae's case, he loves his brother just like Rin loves him, but he is not emotional. He is not emotional except when it comes to competition. And then he gets really, really sore loser, jealous, insecure, things like that. But I like the contrast where Rin is this very emotional character that kind of puts on this tsundere persona to hide it and make himself seem stronger. Whereas Sae is just unemotional. He's just not social. He cares about his brother, but that's about it. It's soccer and his brother, and he doesn't show emotion, and that's really cool. I like that they do that. So, but Rin still cares for him and understands that Sae is different. What's interesting is that Rin's like, oh, I won. And then we cut to Sae, who has the losing lollipop or the losing sucker, and he gets kind of mad about, like, whatever. Meh, meh, meh. He's like, anyone who uses their luck upon stuff like that will never be the best in the world. And he's like, is that how luck works? And he's like, I'm going to become the best striker in the world. Everything else is meaningless. So we're going to talk about this. So Sae's 8-year-old dream is to become the best striker. That's his goal, which is it's what an 8-year-old would say. They're like, I'm going to become the best basketball player in the world. I'm going to become the best whatever. Like something that you do, you're like, I'm going to become the best in the world. And when you're 8, you don't quite realize how subjective the term best is, because it's like, well, best in what area? Best in what part of the world? Best for how long? You know, you're an athlete. You're not going to be the best forever. And so I think that gets so complicated, but when you're a kid, you can't understand the complications of it. And so an 8-year-old Sae does not understand how complicated saying that you're going to be the best is, because he doesn't get all the nuances and all the different layers of it, right? But I also, when he got the losing lollipop or the losing popsicle and he like got mad about it, it made me think like he is a sore loser because he knows how much work he's put into it. So when that work doesn't pay off, it feels like a personal jab to him, like, oh, I'm not good enough, you know? And I think that Sae, even at age 8, is somewhat aware of the role that luck plays into it. Some people just have a lot of luck and they're just born that way. And that's, I think, what frustrates Sae the most is that, you know, there's that cruel reality in the world that some people are just born lucky and you can't help that. There's nothing you can do about that. And that can really put a damper on your spirits, especially if you're trying to be the best in the world, because it's not fair. It's not, but the world isn't fair. And that's a hard lesson to learn as a kid, that the world is not fair. And so he sees kind of firsthand that Rin has this natural born luck, and he's like, shit, my brother has got it lucky. And that's not fair. But he tries to counter that and make himself feel better as they grow up. Because Rin's like, oh, and he's like, my big brother really hates losing. Mm-hmm. And so then we have, so the toy from episode 1 of it falling all makes sense now. That you had Rin, when Rin decided that he was going to go alongside his brother to play soccer. Little Rin, when you're sitting there playing with the toys, like, Sae, do you realize you've turned this innocent, cute little kid into a monster? What? And so then he sees Sae playing soccer and doing really, he's like, my brother won't lose to anyone. And he's like, and he's like, what am I going to do? He's like, I want to be as cool as my brother. And he's like, I want to be strong and cool just like him. Mm-hmm. And so that's going to tie into this. So like we see the dinosaur toy drop, and then we see Rin come onto the field and kick the ball. And the thing that's so crazy is that in this moment, Sae looks at his brother, who has never played soccer before, score a goal. Again, sign of a prodigy, like at age 6. And Sae's like, I've put in all this work, and you just walked onto the field and scored a goal like it was nothing. And Sae's like, you can tell Sae's kind of like, but that's not fair. You know, you can kind of tell in that moment, he's like, but that's not fair that you scored that goal. But in the same mind, he's kind of in awe of his brother. He's like, oh my gosh, like you're great. Like, this is so cool. Like, you scored that goal and that's awesome. And we see these like different dinosaur in the toy thing clash. And he's like, could I be the best striker in the world too? And they both share, and Sae's like, oh, that's crazy. And they're like, well, what's the runt doing on the field? And then Sae like pushes him aside. He's like, leave my brother alone. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, big bro. And then he's like, no, that was awesome. So he's like, play soccer with me. I'll be the best. And you can be the second strongest player after me. That was the first mistake. And that's Sae's biggest mistake. And I think Sae knows it. And that whole thing in that moment is, you could tell Sae was really in awe of Rin and how cool he was, but he tries to hide it. But he's like, I'm going to be the best striker and you can be the second best striker. But in that moment, Rin wants to be the best. That was the first mistake there, is saying that, oh, you'll be the second best after me. Like, that statement in itself, in the moment, in the reaction, I was like, oh, this is Sae's big insecurity. He's like, I've put in all the work. I've done the most. This is my dream. You're just following me because you've seen me do it. But no. You don't get first place. I get first place because I've put in the most work and it's my dream. You have to be second best. And that's not the way to go about it, because you can't just, it's like, I'm sure that Sae was influenced by someone to become a soccer player. He didn't just wake up at age 4 and be like, soccer, I'm going to be the best striker in the world. He probably was influenced by somebody. He probably saw somebody on TV or saw somebody playing soccer and was influenced by them and was like, I'm going to be the best in the world, better than them or like them or whatever. So it's not fair for Sae to then be kind of hypocritically against Rin wanting to become the best striker in the world just because he looks at him. He's like, well, you can't take my dream. It's not his dream to take. That's kind of the point of soccer, and what ego tries to put out is that anybody can be the best and should strive to be the best. No one should take a back seat to anybody or be second best. That's ego's whole thing, is he's like, you all should be trying to score the goal. When he asks Isagi later on in the episode, like, are you okay with being a sacrifice? Are you okay with being second best? Is literally what he's saying. And Isagi's like, no, I want to be the best. And he's like, good, that's the mentality you should have. And I think that by the time that Sae gets to this point, he's realized that, or he's realizing that that's the kind of program Blue Lock is putting out, and he's kind of on board with it. But because Sae is the way that he is, he's not going to admit that outright, but there are hints of it in the episode. So it's really complicated, because I think that on the one hand, Sae is kind of frustrated internally as a kid that he's like, my brother just did what I've been working really hard to do and did it naturally, instantly. He's like, my brother is now, he's like, there seems to be this underlying fear immediately from the get-go that Sae's like, I don't want my brother to take my dream from me. But then it's also combated with the idea that Sae is a good brother in the sense that he does support Rin playing soccer, but his insecurity keeps him from saying along the lines of, we'll be the best strikers, or let's work together to be the best strikers in the world. Like, the idea of best, going with that subjectivity, is that when people think best, they think I have to be, there's only one best. And I think that's such a fallacy. There's not just one best. It's kind of like when I coach forensics, when we get to nationals, the one thing I like about nationals is that there are medal rounds. So if you break to semifinals, you get a bronze round. You get a bronze medal if you break into semifinals. If you break into finals, you either will get a silver medal or a gold medal. But there's never just one gold medalist. They split it in terms of percent. So like the top 10% will make it into finals, and the top 5% will get a gold of all the competitors. And so it's kind of nice, because I tell my students that are on the team, I'm like, as long as you break into finals and if you get a gold, then let's say there's 4 gold medalists. You all are on the same caliber. You all win gold and you're all the best. But there's not, I mean, there are cumulative points, so if you really wanted to get technical, you could figure out who the best is. They call it low cum, but that's never advertised. They're just like, here's our gold medalist, and here's the top of the top. And it's nice because best is subjective. It's like, no, you are the best of your competitive event, but there's 4 of you. So you guys get to all revel in that, right? And I think that that's something that is kind of like true of soccer. There's not the number one. I'm sure that they have that for purposes in the media and stuff. But if you're going to be the best striker, that's a subjective term. And so, but when you're 8 years old, you can't think in terms of that. So he's like, no, I have to be number 1. You can be second after me. It's like, And the thing that's so sad in that moment is that Rin's like, okay, sure. Yeah, I'm following you. I have the kindest big brother in the world. And on the one hand, yeah, Sae is really kind with encouraging Rin to follow up after him. He doesn't shun Rin away from playing soccer. He doesn't tell him that, he's like, no, it's my sport, stay out of it. He encourages him to play, but Rin at 6 years old can't see the underlayer of that saying, being like, oh, my brother's so kind. And I'm like, but he's also telling you that you can't be better than him. That Sae's ego can't take you being better. You have to be second place. Now, I think that changes as it will evolve as we go through this, but it's definitely like at 8 years old, that's what's being put on the table, right? And so then we have the OP. So before we get back to Sae and them, can I just say that Isagi's parents are the most innocent people in the world. They are so innocent. They're just like, our son's doing so great. And he's like, I don't even know about the rules of soccer, but I guess it's a good thing. I'm like, you two are too precious and you don't know your son's a cannibal. So great. Good on you. Good on you. They're just so precious. And they meet Bachira's mom, who is like the coolest woman in the world. Like, I strive to be as cool as Bachira's mother. She is so awesome. And she's like, oh, I'm glad my son's made a friend. I thought of Ace of the Diamond in this moment because there's a character, Furuya, in Ace of the Diamond, and his mother comes later on towards the manga, but she talks about how she was afraid her son wouldn't make friends, and it's very heartfelt and sweet. And so I kind of got those vibes from Bachira's mom. I'm like, oh, that's kind of the same thing. And I love that they look down at him on the field, and Bachira's just like waving around Isagi's like, yeah! I like that Isagi's character, even though he is shipped hardcore with Rin, like so hardcore, I like that he's not limited to Rin. Like, Isagi gets to interact with other characters that could be potential parts of the harem ship, and Bachira is one of them. I think that's so sweet. I love that so much. I think it's good for Isagi's character to be around some positive reinforcement rather than some crazies. And then, okay, look, we're not beating the allegations at this point that Chigiri sees his mom and his sister up there, and then Ada and Tobito like get on either side of them and like, oh, hey, your sister and your mom, huh? And Chigiri's like, shut up. You could look at it two ways. You could either look at it as Chigiri is still down for Kunigami out in the real world, and Ada and Tobito are like his wingmen and being like, hey, we'll support you while you're down and your boyfriend's not here and all that. Or you could look at them as like a threesome and just go from there. I personally ascribe to either of these scenarios, so I can multi-ship in this series. It's fine. I think it's interesting that we don't see, I mean, I don't expect Reio's parents to be there, and we've already seen them in flashbacks. I'm still surprised we don't see Rin and Sae's parents there, especially given how popular they are, especially Sae. I'm surprised we haven't seen their parents, but maybe they work. Maybe they're not interested in soccer. I can't imagine why if they've won all those medals. But then we have the obligatory manager in the wings being like, how would you screw this up? You need to figure out what's going on and win no matter what. Like, just establishing how dirty both of these characters play. I'm not surprised they put Ryusei in, because at this point it's like, well, what other choice do you have? You need to try something different. And Ryusei is literally like, it very much feels like deals with the devil. They call Shido Akuma-kun. They call him Devil Boy. And all of the framing in this was very much like, we're down on our luck. We're willing to do anything to win. And they're like, are we willing to make a deal with the devil? And then there's Ryusei. So it all felt very outlined by that. I also like the contrast of the two locker rooms at halftime. Like, obviously, this is Blue Lock, so it goes to the utmost extreme. But you have the one losing locker room that's just panicking, being like, we have to do something to win, and we have to go and do this, and everybody's like, oh, we're gonna lose. And then you cut to the other locker room and everybody's like, haha, oh my gosh, did you see how glam I was with blocking that shot? Which Aryu was glam. Aryu deserves their flowers. We're the bomb. I love it. And I love Toki like doing the little clap while Aryu is like gracefully going through the air like a damn walking stick. It's great. Also, I like Hiyori talking with Chigiri. Now, Sho, you can't be foreshadowing, because Hiyori's like, how's the legs? And he's like, oh, they're fine. I'm like, don't be doing this. Don't be doing this. Don't be doing this, Sho. Don't be getting us some foreshadowing that Hiyori's going to run into trouble. We don't need that right now. But I take it as foreshadowing. Then Nagi's looking around being like, towel, like a sim, just rotating around. And of course, Nagi throws the towel. It very much reminded me of, in Haikyuu, Bokuto throwing his jacket and Akashi just reaches out and grabs the jacket with his arm. That's exactly what it reminded me of. My thing is, Reio, you are so dramatic. You two have had this discussion. Nagi has been like, I'm going to go do my thing, and you catch up and everything. You've had this discussion, but Reio still looks like he hasn't slept in 3 days. And I'm like, just turn around and talk to him. Quit. Reio is going to ignore talking to Nagi and ignore the fact that Nagi's waiting for him until he can come out on the field and have his moment and then be like, look, Nagi, I did it. Nagi will be like, yes, husband, that's so great of you. And it'll be like, oh my God. He's just waiting for that. I'm like, Rayo, quit being every one of these teenage boys are so dramatic. So then Ego comes in. And I honestly like Ego's talk to them. It's very straightforward. He just gets them all gathered in their little hexagon. And he's like, how did we score those goals? He's like, figure out what made us score those goals. Carve that into your memory. How did that work for you? Whatever didn't work. He's like, things don't always go our way. It's fine. We're going to run into that in this game. Things that didn't initially work. He's like, look at Rin. He made a breakthrough. It's just so sad seeing Rin so like just tsundere and like, I'm like, no, be excited, Rin. Be like how you used to be. And maybe he will be after he beats Sae and they have like an actual conversation. But it hurts my heart and breaks it to see him so downtrodden when we saw how happy and kind he was as a kid. I'm like, no. I'm like, Sae, do you realize what you've done to your brother? And Sai's like, yes, I do. But yeah. So then, of course, Rin rather, he's like, what made you do that? And he's like, Rin, how did you do it? And he's like, well, to get past the 4-man defense, I needed a sacrifice. And it's such a backhanded compliment where he's like, yeah, Sagi fit the role easily. And Sagi's like, well, thank you, sir. Again, what's so crazy is it's like Rin is trying to pass the trauma along to Asagi. Like, Rin is trying to play Sae so hard. Like, Rin is trying to be like his brother and be heartless and emotionless. But we know that Rin's not like that because we've seen it in the flashbacks. Like, I refuse to believe that Sae has broken Rin completely. Rin is so emotional in wanting to beat him that he's trying to put on... He's like, well, if I can't beat him, I'll join him. I'll act like Sae, and maybe that'll make me stronger. But I'm like, Rin, you are so different than your brother, and you need to embrace that. And I don't know if Rin has fully realized that yet or not. And in this moment, it felt like Rin was trying to pass on that... He was trying to pass on that angst and trauma to Asagi. But unfortunately for us, Asagi is not easily swayed by such things. And he's like, what? No. So that's why I like Rin and Asagi, because Asagi can take it and be like, and dish it right back. Because I like these, like, Asagi, what do you think about being a sacrifice? And he's like, well, no, I'm going to score the goal myself. And it's like, Like, it's so interesting because... You have Asagi be faced with the very same thing that Rin was faced with Sae, but back when they were kids, because of course they were 8 years old, Sae was like, you're going to be my second fiddle and my sacrifice and I'll be the best. And Rin was like, yep, will do because I just want to play with you and enjoy it. And now as teenagers, Rin is putting that on Asagi and Asagi's like, no, I'm not going to be second place to you. No, why would I do that? And so it's interesting to see how that works here. It's great. And he's like, good, that's how you should feel. You should not be second fiddle. He's like, all 11 of you need to work and let those egos tell you you're playing for the lead role and fight for this battle. That's what got us here. So he's like, basically, nothing is set in stone yet. Don't celebrate and get carried away. I love that he does the dramatic pose. He's like, you've achieved nothing yet. Good on you, Ego. Ego and Sae would probably get along really, really well. And he's like, don't be satisfied. Keep attacking. I love that. Refuse to relinquish your right until the last second. That's always the thing. You can't, I say this as a coach as well, you can't go in at the halfway point thinking you're going to win. You have to fight all the way through. That's the gist of it. And he's like, I'm going to prove myself in this game. Yes, you will, Asagi. I believe you will. It's funny because Asagi very much has like the Deku mentality going on from My Hero Academia. And then you have Rin and Sae that are basically Todoroki and another character in My Hero Academia just being divas. Like that parallel is very similar in this. I do think, to go along with the Bokuto motif, Teppei just swaying back and forth, dismayed, is very Bokuto coded from Haikyuu. Very much so. Poor little Oliver, like back in the corner, he's like very dismayed. And then Sendo, of course, is being down on himself. Being like, well, I could have done this, could have done that. And so they're thinking about what to do. And so they're trying to plan on how to like change things. And meanwhile, Sae walks in, just walks in, shirtless, barely in clothes, just naked as a jaybird almost. And he's like, do what you like, I'm leaving. And I'm like, wait, what? And they're like, what are you talking about? And this is the part that kind of frustrates me. He's like, oh, I'm going. And they're like, what? So I will say, Sae is such a brat. Such a brat. And I'm like, what dramatics? That was my one beef with this episode was how easily, what was the point? Because you knew the moment they're like, oh, we're going to have Ryusei play, that he was going to turn right back around and play with him. Like, it was not even a stretch. There was not even a contemplation. He was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm like, what are you? Such a bitch. I'm like, you're being so dramatic for no reason. Like, all he could have said was like, I'm not going to play unless you bring Ryusei in because you're all garbage. That's all he had to say. But instead he's like, I'm going to leave and quit because he doesn't want to lose. Because he doesn't want to be a sore loser. But also I'm like, you really want to tell me you're going to walk away from Rin and fighting him? Really? I was like, that's the least believable shtick ever. So he agrees to stay because of Ryusei, but also talks about his interest in Blue Lock. And I can immediately see why Sae would like Blue Lock, because it seems like exactly what he's wanting. It's like the idea of Blue Lock is that you are your own player. You don't play for anybody but yourself. And that's literally Sae's MO this entire series so far. So it makes sense why he would be like, well, I don't want you all to win because I don't want the status quo. I want Blue Lock to win. And so it kind of makes sense why he would want to leave, because he's like, I want Blue Lock to beat you so that the status quo can change to something that I like, because this is not working. But in order for Blue Lock to win, that means that Sae would have to lose. And Sae hates losing. So he's like, well, I'm not even going to be part of the equation then. I can't lose if I'm not playing. And it's such a bitch move, but I get why he would do it. And Oliver is just like, he's like, we're weak. The way that Oliver says we're weak is so good. Like, I feel for Oliver, and I feel like he wants to evolve. And I love that about his character. Like, he's one of my favorites so far of this season. He's just so great. I want to see more of him. But also, like, okay, like Sae was going to walk out without a shirt on too. Like, you think that much of yourself, sir? Oh, which he probably does. Sure. Because he's like, I'm going to go. And he's like, we're weak. What are we going to do? And they're like, well, the U20s are going to be taken over and you all will disappear. And Sae's like, yep, too late for you to notice that now. And then Oliver's like, well, but what if we let Ryusei play? What if we let he come in? And he's been there the whole time, sitting there dramatically waiting in the wings like Phantom of the Opera, like just waiting to come in. And everybody's like, oh, you're here. And I'm like, how did you not know he's here? He's literally a rabid feral possum. How did you not know he was waiting there? They're like, oh, we still have this devil. And then Ryusei's like, genius. We haven't done it at least 3 more times. You really think we're going to walk away? He's like, isn't the life form known as yours truly enough for you to stay? I'm like, what? And then Sae's like, oh, yeah, I guess. Look, I'm going to take a sip of the Blue Lock shipping juice for a hot second. Hold on. I think it's amazing that Sae's like, I don't give a shit about anybody else. He cares about Rin. Don't get me wrong. We'll talk about that in a minute. But he's like, I don't give a shit about anybody else. I don't care about this. I'm out for myself. And Ryusei is like, but what about me too? he's like, well, you're like yeah. What did we talk about? We talked in the Discord about characters. In Blue Lock, everyone might as well be a verse. Everybody might as well be a switch in Blue Lock if you're going to ship them. In order to be the best striker, you have to be able to play any position at any given time. So I would say anybody in Blue Lock for the most part could top, maybe not Ryu, but I would say almost anybody in Blue Lock could be a top or a bottom, depending upon the circumstance and who they are shipped with. I think I'm like, who is the top in the situation between Sae and Ryusei? I think it could switch. I feel like Sae would be maybe a power bottom, but some people were like, no, Sai's a top. And I was like, would he be? Would he be? Or would Ryusei be? I can't picture Ryusei as a bottom necessarily. Y'all can comment down below, but we had a very heated discussion in the Discord about this, and I'm still undecided. I think it could go either way, but I don't know. I feel like Sae being a power bottom would kind of make sense. Like, he would want control, but also I can't picture Ryusei as a bottom, so I don't know. And I've changed my tune like 3 or 4 times since discussing in the Discord. And so then he's like, fine, go berserk, devil boy, and I'll play with you. The headliners will be you and me. And that's so interesting because that seems like such a difference from Sae telling Rin back in the day that he was like, I'll be number 1 and you be number 2. And here he told Ryusei, he's like, well, the headliners will be both you and me. Which I'm like, why couldn't you have that mentality when you were like 8 or 13? But I feel like what's interesting is that Sae understands that Ryusei isn't playing volleyball to chase anyone, which is a big point. He still believes that Rin is chasing soccer because of Sae. Sai's like, you're only playing soccer because of me and to get at me. But he's like, I don't know if you're playing soccer because you love soccer like I love soccer. Like, Sae loves soccer as the sport, and he, for all we know, is playing it for himself, not for anyone else. And I think he senses Ryusei, who talks about soccer on a biological level and talks about being in your blood and your cells, is like, Ryusei is also playing for a biological reason. And Sae doesn't believe that Rin is doing it for that reason right now. Now, when Rin beats him, maybe he'll come to that realization. But I feel like that's why he can say that to Shido in that moment, right? And Oliver's like, okay, fine. Oliver's like, good. Glad you're not leaving, Sae. Otherwise, we would lose. So Oliver's like, great. We'll all have to pick up the pace and keep playing. And now we're stuck with Ryusei. So it's going to get 10 times more chaotic. So, okay. Like, you can sense the stress on Oliver's face. And then Ryusei, of course, is like super excited. Look, Sae is a psychopath. He loves his brother in the weirdest, most extreme tough love scenario. But he's a psychopath. And so is Ryusei. So they deserve each other. Meanwhile, Rin and Isagi deserve each other because they're both deep down little soft, compassionate crustaceans that, well, Rin is often portrayed as an owl, so he's eating the crustacean. But they're both really soft and compassionate on the inside. They just also have tendencies to be cannibalistic and crazy. So it's fine. It's great. So Rin's thinking of back when he's like, if you keep behaving like you're my little brother, then you're never going to surpass me. And he thinks back to that, and Rin's like, just you watch, you bad excuse for a big brother. I'm going to. So Rin's goal now is that he wants to prove that he can surpass Sae. That is his excuse. And to prove to Sae that he's wrong. Right? Now, do I think that Rin is seeing the big picture in all of this? Not necessarily. No. Also, that kid with the Band-Aid on looks like he could be a character in Blue Lock. Because here's the thing. When Sae's 8, he's like, my dream for the future is to become a soccer player like my big brother. So, even back then, he is chasing after Sae. And what's kind of crazy about that is that I don't think Rin believes that he's better than Sae. He believes that he wants to be as good as Sae, but doesn't believe that he has the potential to be better, at least at age 6 or 8, right? Because then they talk about that my brother is going to be the best striker and I'll be the second best and will win the World Cup. And it's this idea of relying upon one another to play. And as we learned from Blue Lock, you can't rely upon other people. That's not the point. The point is you rely on yourself and your skills, and then you all work as a team to make that reality happen. But you don't rely upon anybody else. And right now, as they're 13 and 11, they're relying on each other. And so to Sae's credit, Sae keeps telling Rin what he's doing wrong and how to get better. And he's like, okay, I'll be more careful next time. I'll get better. And he's like, can you pick up the tempo a bit? Like, keep up. And he's like, sure, I'll try. I'll do it. And so they're like, it was fun playing with my big brother. And with my big brother, I can become invincible alongside him. And that they both were able, I'll become the best in the world alongside my big brother. And that little tiny twist, like he had gone from being a kid saying, I'll be second best and my brother will be best. But then the moment they turn like 11 and 13, that dream starts to shift a little bit. And Rin phrases it as, I'll be the best with my brother. So at this stage of the game, we see that he wants to be the best with Sae. And so there's a little tiny change with that. And meanwhile, to Sae's credit, he keeps on encouraging. He keeps encouraging Rin to get better. He's like, to keep up with him, to get better. Because I do think Sae wants Rin to play with him. And then we have the scene on the dock where, again, I want to see Rin make that expression where he won over and over again, where he's like, oh, I won. I was like, don't scoff at yourself for winning. No, I want to see him make that expression again. And Sae's like, you're wasted your luck, Rin. And he's like, destroying the evidence. I felt a little sad at that moment because it almost seemed like Rin didn't want to acknowledge, like he doesn't want to make his brother feel bad that he lost. And it's like, So as the sun is setting, of course the sun is setting, right? That's when he's like, Rin, what do you think about when you play soccer? And Rin's like, well, nothing really. He's like, I just think about scoring. And he's like, and I know you'll pass the ball to me if I run into a hot spot. And he's like, what do you mean by a hot spot? And he's like, the places where the enemy panics and breaks down. And in that moment, Sae gives him this kind of side eye. So we have to wonder as the audience, like, Sae obviously has a lot of thoughts on soccer. Like he is thinking a lot, I'm sure, about strategy, about what he's doing, about what his goals are, and doing all this technical stuff. And again, for Rin, it comes natural. Like Rin doesn't even know how to label the technical terms of where these things are happening, but he gets this natural instinct about what to do. And he knows that Sae is going to respond to him. And that's something you can't necessarily, like you can teach it, but if it comes naturally to you, it's so much easier. And it almost seems like Sae's like you have such a natural instinct. And I feel in that moment that Sae's like, am I holding you back? Because if you're relying on me to be a good player, you have all this natural instinct. You can do all of these things. You should not be reliant upon me. You could surpass me if you wanted to, but you're not, because, and I feel like in that moment, Sae's kind of like, am I holding him back? Am I keeping him from being better? Because he has all this natural instinct. And he's like, you rely on your gut too much. Like you should learn, he's like, you should learn technical terms. You should learn the game. Like don't rely so much on just your gut instinct. It'll only take you so far. And he's like, well, you passed the ball to me, so it's all good, right? And then he's like, you know, playing with other guys just doesn't feel satisfying. He's like, but what are you going to do when I'm not around? And that's when Sae's like, you know, you're relying too much on me. What are you going to do when I'm not here? And Rin's like, well, I guess I'll just find a replacement. And Sae's like, he's like, as if you could replace me. You're like, who do you think I am? And he's like, oh yes, fine. The great Itoshi Sae, best in the world. And that phrase, like Sae knows that his brother looks up to him so much. And the thing of it is that Sae, you can tell later on, gets kind of mad because he's like, replacement, you can't just say replacement. There is no replacement. You're either the best or you're going to strive to be the best. You shouldn't rely upon anybody. He's like, that's not going to get you anywhere. And he gets frustrated at Rin by it because he doesn't think Rin can get it. But rather than vocalize and communicate with Rin all of these thoughts, they're hormonal teenage boys and they don't do that. And you're just like, what the fudge? But you can tell Sae's kind of like, He's like, I'm leaving for Spain tomorrow, which at 13 is crazy. He's like, I'm leaving for Spain. I'm going to join the academy of the best soccer club in the world, Royale, which, you know what? I had a friend whose sister went to like a math academy when she was in high school because she wanted to be like this. She was like super accelerated in her skills in math. So her parents were like, we're going to send you to this math academy. So it's kind of the same deal. So I get that, but that's still such a big transition. And Reen's like, why are you being so formal? He's like, I know what's going on. You're going to be the best striker in the world, right? He's like, I'm just going there before you, so you have to catch up to me. Don't you dare give up. So there's a line of thought here that's very important. And that's that Sae says, don't give up on being the best striker. Don't give up on that dream. You keep practicing and keep training and catch up to me, because I'm going to go be the best and you have to catch up to me. But he kind of like looks away from the camera in that moment. And he's like, my goal is to be the best in Japan and get scouted just like you. And then they both are like, we'll become the best in the world together. And so see, there's that change where they're not going to be number 1 and number 2. Now they're going to be equal together, which is great. That's perfect. And so then he sees them off, and I'm like, the smile he has on his face, like, big bro, and he's like, oh, hey, I'm off. And the little smile that Rin gives in that moment, I would give anything for that back. I would give anything for that smile to come back. Like, what the fudge? How dare you, show? How dare you? And so then he keeps practicing. He keeps training so he can take on and be on the world stage. And he's like, playing soccer without my big brother is confining and awkward. But he's like, I need to ascend to my brother's level. Now that the team has lost my big brother, I have to be the one to make up for it. So again, there's still this idea that Rin believes that his brother is the standard. That's the thing. He still believes that his brother is the standard that he needs to live up to. And I think that that's something Sae gets mad at as well, because he believes that Rin is kind of short-sighted, that he's like, no, I'm not the best. There are people better than me. Don't strive to just be as good as me. You need to strive to surpass me, because there are people better than me. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But I'm really curious at this point that if Rin and Sae ended up on the same team, I don't know how that would work. And I kind of don't want that, because even though Rin kind of wants to play with his brother again and wants to be on the team with him to have those experiences, like, I could see them doing scrimmage matches or practice matches and stuff, but I kind of want Sae to go play for an international team and for him and Rin to be rivals. I want that. I want him and Rin to be rivals against one another, but I kind of don't want them to be on the same team, because I don't know what that would do and how that would work, right? Would it become the Rin and Sae show? Where would Asagi and the others fit in on that? So I don't know how I feel about that. I kind of like the idea that Sae's like, I don't want to play with you, because then we'll get stuck in this rut. And instead, I'd rather be your competition and play against you. It's kind of like 30 seconds of end of Haikyuu manga spoilers. So I'm going to just spoil that for the next 30 seconds. It's kind of like at the end of Haikyuu, Kageyama and Shoyo always play on different international teams against one another. You would expect they're like, oh, they're like the ultimate ship. They should play with one another. But at this point, they both want to keep growing and evolving. So they play against one another, and that's the challenge. And I love that. It's so cool that way. It's like, oh, it would be cool to have them play together and very shippy, but it's also kind of more edgier and even more shippy for them to play with other people and other teams against one another and constantly be at battle against one another. Like, that part's really cool. So end of Haikyuu manga spoilers. But I think that would be cool for Sae and Rin to keep playing on opposite teams and to constantly try to keep besting one another, right? That would be my goal for the future. But then we get to Night Snow. The animation team has saved its budget for this episode, because this whole sequence was amazing. It was animated so well. I loved it. It was absolutely fabulous. I was like, oh, okay, series. But Sae comes back from being away 4 years at Spain. Rin is like, oh, here's my one thing. I get that Sae is disgruntled and Sae is heartbroken. And Sae, we're going to talk about him in a second, and how he feels seeing Rin and how bright-eyed and bushy-tailed Rin is and how he feels so bad about it. We'll talk about that here in a second, but I just want to say, knowing what Sae is feeling in this moment, your brother has been looking forward to you for 4 years to see you, And what you do is shatter his hopes and dreams because of your own insecurity and fears. Like, you couldn't give your brother a hug. You couldn't. But Sai's emotionless. He isn't a compassionate, huggy, touchy-feely person. That's just how Sae is. And Rin is compassionate and a touchy-feely person. And that's why this is so heartbreaking, is because you're like, no, why can't you be normal people? And that's not how this goes. Because Sae is completely crestfallen. And this scene was so good. Like, to see a little bit more behind the curtain with Sai's character was like, okay. Because Rin's like, what? Well, welcome. And I what's so sad is that as soon as Rin's like, hi, big brother, and Sai's just like, and then you just see Rin slowly fade from that excitement down to being just like, oh, hey, welcome home. Like, I hate that. That's why I like him and Asagi, because I feel like Asagi tries to bring that cheerfulness back out of him that Sae has squashed. And I want Asagi to bring that back from Rin and for Rin to be more cheerful. And my hope is that Asagi can do that. But it's so sad to see how much Sae has, like, compressed him. And he's like, yeah, I'm back. And Rin's like, well, I see you on the news all the time. He's like, you played in the Royales, the Academy Games, you scored goals. You're awesome. And that distance between the two of them, Sae does not believe he's awesome at all. And Sae is just like, there are people more awesome than me out there. And Rin's like, well, why are you being like this? And Sae is frustrated. He's like, I've updated my dream. I'm going to be the best midfielder in the world. And Rin gets mad at that. Because what has happened, which they're 13 to 17 years old, like the formidable years of your childhood into young adulthood, of course, is that Sae has realized, that there are better and more talented players out there. He's realized there are people that are better than him at soccer. And what the problem with that is that if you are not a prodigy, like, Nagi and some others, like, if you don't have the mindset, like, you look at Asagi, and Asagi's mindset is kind of like Kagami from Kuroko's Basketball. He's like, oh, there's better people out there? Cool. I'll just evolve and eat them. Like, that's his mentality. And then you have prodigies like Nagi who are like, well, I guess I'll just learn eventually how to do what they do and just get better at it. Like, those mindsets for those characters work so well for them. But we're slowly seeing that Sae does not have that mindset. Sae received a very harsh real world awakening that he's not more talented than some of these other people who are probably prodigies. And Himuro in Kuroko's Basketball kind of has the same thing happen with him, where he realizes, I have a limit. This is my limit. Then what do I do? And I feel like Sae feels ashamed because he told his brother he'd be the best and realizes that that might not be possible. He feels like he's letting his brother down. So he feels like I'm letting my brother down. I'm not going to be the best. And so, but what kind of sucks for Sae is that Sae is like, well, I'm going to be the best midfielder. I'm like, it feels like Sae is settled. And Sae is just like, well, this is the limit of my skills. So I'm just going to be playing the midfield. And what we don't know as the audience is we don't know if the coaches have told him this, if other players have told him this. Achoo! We don't know, like, what has made him think that this is what his options are and this is what the best role for him is. Like, we don't know that. And he's got, like, the bags under his eyes, like Sae with the bags under his eyes. I was like, oh my God, what? So, like, it was just so powerful. He's like, I'm going to be the best midfielder. And Rin's like, striker, you mean? Because we're all strikers. And so that's what I mean. Like, I don't know if the coaches have told Sae that midfielder is the best he'll ever be. And Sae has accepted this, which is, kind of a betrayal to Rin, because he's like, well, that's not what we agreed on. And in Sae's mind, it's such a weird contrast because Sae believes that, no, we're going to be the best striker, which is kind of tied to Blue Lock's philosophy. Blue Lock's philosophy is like, yeah, you're all strikers. You all may be put on the field in different positions, but you're all strikers. At the end of the day, your job is to score a goal. That's what you're here for. So that's what you need to do. And Rin kind of embodies that. He's like, no, we're going to be strikers. That's it. Sae, on the one hand, seems like he's given up and it's frustrating for him. So he's like, well, I'll just settle for being the best at this. And that way I won't lose, technically, because he's a sore loser. But also, he kind of interprets Rin's conversation here as Rin being immature and not realizing how hard the world is. And he's like, well, you haven't gone out to Spain. You haven't seen the world talent. You haven't seen how they dwarf and eclipse our own abilities. And so I'm sure he thinks that Rin is being slightly immature because of this conversation. But also, I'm sure it's frustrating for Sae because Sae probably realizes Rin could be a striker and be the best because he's a prodigy. But I'm not going to be that. And I've reached my limits and I know that, which is very, and he's kind of just like faking it till he makes it, you know? He's like, there's no point in being the best midfielder in the world. And that's when Sae said, shut up. And I'm sure for Sae, that's so insulting because he's like, oh, you're saying that I have no value because I'm not good enough to be the best striker. And I'm like, oh no. Like neither of them know, like Rin doesn't know what Sae's been through. And Sae thinks that Rin is being immature, and it's, oh, he's like someone who's never been out in the world. They're the only ones that would say that. And Rin's like, what are you going on about? He says, you said we'd fight together and I should be second best after you. And Sae's like, well, then fine. I'll become the best midfielder and you'll become the best striker. But to Rin, that's like, he's like, no, we said we'd do this together. Why are you settling? Like, he's like, why should you settle and I go forward? He's like, I'm the little brother of the best striker in the world. And I kind of get why Sae gets mad at him because he's like, no, Rin, you're not just my little brother. I feel like Sae is frustrated because he wants Rin to be better than him and knows he can be better than him. But for some reason, Rin still had in this moment that sibling mentality. And Sae's like, you have to stop thinking about that because he's like, if you can't be better than me, you're going to be even more disappointed and miserable. Because it feels like Sae is miserable in this moment. And he's like, I don't want you to be even more miserable than me. And that's what's going to happen if you can't surpass me. And that, oh, and that, because when Rin says, like, I'm the little brother of the best striker in the world, like, you can just feel Sae being heartbroken. Because Sae's like, but I'm not the best striker in the world. And Sae's realized that he may never be the best striker in the world. So it's just so heartbreaking in this moment. And Sae, who is not emotional, not an emotional communicative person, you can feel the heartbreak in him. And for the first time, he sees emotional and he's like, shit, no, like, that's not what I want for you. And he's like, did you come back just to tell me something so lame? He's like, I don't want to see you like this. And Sae, who can't come clean about everything because he's probably embarrassed and insecure and feels like he's letting his brother down and not being the big brother that Rin looks up to. Instead, he's like, you aren't the big brother that I shared my dream with. And that just makes Sae mad. And so rather than talk it out, because they're a bunch of teenage boys, he just gets mad and represses. And he just represses everything and is like, you need, and his solution is that since he can't live up to Rin's expectations, he's like, no. He's like, I get it now. He's like, we're both half-baked. He's like, I'm half-baked because I thought I could be this great striker and I was put in my place and have realized the limits of my ability, even though he's amazing. And he's kind of, and he's not, Sae doesn't have a great mentality around it. Like, rather than viewing the challenge as a challenge, he's just like, no, I'm going to play within my wheelhouse. And maybe that's changed in the last year or so. Maybe. But it seems that way in this moment. And he's calling Rin half-baked because he's like, you shouldn't be relying upon me. I thought we were past this. And he's like, if you rely on me, you're never going to get better. And he's like, you and me both. So Sae's solution is, I'm just going to traumatize my brother. I'm going to traumatize him into leaving me. Because he's like, if you can't beat me one-on-one, if you can beat me one-on-one, I'll share that dream with you. But he's like, that's not going to happen. Because then Sae's like, look, I'm so much better than you, and I'm still not enough. So he's like, you need to leave me and get better on your own and just leave me in the dust. Like, it's kind of sad. Like, Sae's like, if you can't be better than me, then just quit. There's no point. And that's kind of like when he tells Rin to quit the game. He's like, if you can't be better than me, then you might as well quit so that you don't suffer all this heartbreak that I've suffered. He's like, but if you just leave me behind, he's like, I know my limits. I know I'm where I'm at, but I know you can surpass me. Go on without me and be the best striker in the world. And I'll just stay here and be this midfielder. And what I want in the game now is that I want Rin to like grab him by the collar and be like, show some dignity for yourself. Keep fighting. Keep challenging yourself. Don't let me be the reason why you're not doing things. They're just holding each other back. And it's like, son of a bitch, just quit it. I hate it. Like that whole scene has so much more context now. And he's like, what have you been doing these last 4 years? And he's just like, you need to either quit or get better than me. I hate it. I'm just like, you've been gone for 4 years. Like, why can't you be normal brothers? Why do you have to be so dramatic? And Rin's like, I worked really hard to be the best in Japan and get scouted like you. And this kind of goes back to Sae saying like, well, the best in Japan isn't the best. Like that's why I think Sae agrees so much with what Ego says, is he's like, yeah, Japan has a lot to work on. And he's like, if you're just the best in Japan, that's not enough. He's like, it's not enough. He's like, I thought the same thing and was proven woefully wrong. And then he's like, I thought I could be your replacement. And Sae's like, you can't think in terms like that. He's like, you can't think of terms like best in Japan and replacement. Rin's like, well, why can't we just be brothers and hug it out? And then I feel like Sae gets mad at him too, because Rin kind of like gives up in this moment being like, well, if you're not here, what's the point of me playing? And I feel like that's an insult to Sae too, because Sae's like, oh, I poured my heart and soul into this game and was rewarded by the harsh reality that my best may not be good enough. And you're telling me as a prodigy that you're just playing because of me and that you'll easily give it up if you can't play with me, then fine, quit. Because it's not worth it then. You don't care enough about it. And so I need in this second half of the match for Rin to be like, I do care about soccer. It's not just because of you, but I want to play with you because you're my brother. Like I need something like, I need these two to talk it out now that we've seen this, right? He's like, screw that best in Japan shit. And Rin's face when he tells him to quit is so sad. He's like, screw that your replacement shit. He's like, it makes me want to hurl. He's like, don't rely on me because it brings out his own inequities. Don't use me as an excuse to play soccer. He's like, he's like, yeah. Because he's like, that's an insult to how much work Sae's put into it and how much dedication he has. If he's like, oh, you can just quit this game because of me. He's like, you have no clue what I've sacrificed to put into this. And he's like, you're just being a brother who's pain in the neck. But again, we can't talk this out. And then the whole you have no value and get lost. I'm like, that was so extreme. But Sae is so pissed in that moment. And he's like, I don't need you in my life. I'm like, where are their parents? Did they have to go inside and eat dinner together after this conversation? Or did Sae just leave? And the parents were like, okay. Also, Rin's bedroom is really nice and huge, which makes me think that his family has money. I mean, they had their own soccer practice. They had their own, like, practice field. So I'm assuming his parents have money. I'm assuming it's kind of like a Rayo situation where his family's got some funds. But he's like, I'm going to quit. He's like, I only did it to be near my big brother. But then he looks at all the trophies. He's like, to him, I was only a trial horse to become the best in the world. That's the thing that frustrates me, is that I'm like, no, Rin, you don't get what your brother's going through, and you don't get how he views you. Like, he wanted you both to be the best. He's just, Sae's had this horrible dose of reality, and he's not explaining it to Rin because that would be embarrassing to Sae, and he doesn't want to point out his own flaws, and makes Rin realize that his big brother he's idolized is not perfect. And it's so frustrating because then Rin has like a big, like, Orson Welles, like, end of Citizen Kane room-wrecking freak out. And is like, no. He's like, I'm not going to forget those feelings that we shared. I can't pretend that they didn't happen. He's like, my brother's just being an asshole. They weren't lies. And then that face that he makes where he's like, I'm going to kill him. He'll pay for this. I'm like, you boys, this family might have some anger management issues in their genetic material, where he's like, no, I'm not going to quit soccer. I'm just going to beat him and make him pay. And I think that's kind of what Sae wanted him to do, but I'm like, you both still need to talk it out and get on the same level. Because then it like cuts from him being so dramatic and angry to be like, I'm going to shatter Sae's dream. And then it cuts to Asagi being like, hey bro, you okay? Isagi's perfect for Rin because he can soak up all the drama and just be like, okay. But my thing is, does Sae really still want to be the best midfielder? And Rin's going to be like, that's stupid. Be the best striker or go home. That's what's going to have to come out in this game. So I don't know how that's going to work. But then, yeah, of course, the brother-in-law, Ryusei, is standing out there waiting for him, being the most dramatic. The most dramatic. And I like Henri's like, are we going to deal with him? What are we going to do? And Ego's like, we've practiced anti-Shido Ryusei measures. We did have tactical gear made for him in this instance. Ego's like, we're fine. I mean, Ego's like, what's the point of worrying? They've played against Ryusei before. We know how this song and dance goes. My thing is, Ego's kind of right. He's like, look, their manager can't handle them. Their team has probably not practiced with him. So even if Ryusei comes out with an advantage at the start of the next couple episodes, I feel like Ego's like, we'll just adapt and overcome. That's all we can do at this point. So they're like, no, we'll be fine. That's why, you know, he wanted Ryusei when we couldn't even tame him, because he's just this force to be reckoned with. And of course, then you have Sae, who's like, I am totally fine having this. Like, let's see what Sae's idea of an egoist is. I feel like Sae is like, no, I like Ryusei because he can't be tamed, but he also doesn't rely upon me. And we both can just like have an orgy on the field together. Ridiculous. And then this is where the match is going to begin. And Rin's like, fine, I'll deal with this. So the additional time is super cute, where it shows Sae, he puts on his left foot first, which I don't know if that's normal or against the grain, but he does look out for Rin in this and teach him how to eat curry in the middle to get both the flavors. And he's like he is, in his own weird way, Sae is really sweet to him. Although, again, Sae is a little brat. Like, he puts on the sunny doll because they put them up to, like, encourage it to be sunny outside when it rains. He writes idiot, and you're like, you dumb rainy. Like, what does he say? You dumb rainy doll, and you're useless. Like, Sae is kind of just, like, a terrifying brat, which is sad because Rin is, like, really compassionate and sweet. And then, like, him kicking the soccer ball at the car, which I'm glad the series is like, don't do that in real life. And then like having the rainbow coming out of Rin's mouth like he's throwing up. And when he calls it total garbage and Rin like copies him being like, garbage, garbage, total garbage. I'm like, maybe, I know Sae loves you, Rin, but maybe he's not the best influence. Maybe Sae, and I think Sae knows, he's like, I should not be a role model, but I do care for you and you're my brother. So it is what it is. And I'm going to keep caring for you, even though you're my brother. Oh, and he's like, let's go. Oh, it's so sweet. It's so adorable. Ah! This episode made me 1000% on board with the Rin and Sae relationship because there's so much dynamics and layers and everything to it. And it's evolving still. Like, it's evolved all throughout their entire life so far, and it keeps evolving, which is amazing. So I'm really excited to see where it goes in the second half. The second half of the match is going to be insane. It's going to be crazy. But I'm here for it. I'm excited. I hope you all are as well, but I can't wait to hear your thoughts down below. I know I've gone on for like over an hour with this discussion, but we're just going to have to see what happens, right? So, anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with episode 10 of Blue Lock. Bye!